brothers and sisters, right prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. All praise I do thee, Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the Beneficent, most merciful. Soul Master in day judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone do we seek thy help and aid and mercy. O Allah, please guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors, not the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor the path of gone astray, after they have heard thy teachings. Say, He, Allah, is one God. Allah is He of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begets not, nor is begotten, and there is none like Him. And I bear witness that none deserve to be served or should be praised besides Allah. Came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is our true servant, the last apostle. Amen.
In the name of Allah, came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. In the name of His last and greatest messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I greet the brothers and sisters of the Nation of Islam's greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. Today, I want to call this Who Speaks for the Negro? And this was a title of the July 1961 Jet magazine. Because in the recent history of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he never gets the credit that he's due. And I believe that the only way that he can get his just credit is by, as he said, history is best qualified to reward our research. You know, so if we look at the documented history of Messenger Elijah Muhammad and compare the documented history to what's written about him now, that's mostly written about him by people who was not a part of any movement. A brother who is a college professor, or some brother who do movies. Many brothers who wasn't even born during that time write books, thick books about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad based on selective articles, selective speeches, and selective even speeches from Malcolm X. Because if you look at the any DVD or any CD that you get on Malcolm X, it's selective speeches from Malcolm X. They don't give you the 12-year history of Malcolm X while he was in the Nation of Islam. They give you selective speeches, like they'll give you the last speeches, like the speech that he gave right before he left the Nation of Islam, and then they'll give you the speeches that he gave while he was outside of the Nation of Islam. They never give you the speeches where he himself admitted that he knew nothing. He would admit over the rostrum that I speak what I've been taught by Elijah Muhammad. He even was once, he was talking about how the devil, he said, he's like, the devil always wanna you know, have me come to these colleges for debates. And he said they don't wanna ask the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to debate, because he said that when I go debate, I have to remember what he told me. But he said that when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad debates, he doesn't have to remember what anybody told him. He said he got it straight from God. So when we see the history that's written about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad today, it's mainly history written by people who were either not born during that time or they were not even a part of a movement. It's just brothers with their opinion. Like if you look at the movie Malcolm X, that was written by Spike Lee. Spike Lee admits that he think that the messenger was guilty of killing the messenger. How can you get a accurate opinion of the messenger from somebody who telling you that he thinks that the messenger had something to do with Malcolm's death? And Spike Lee wasn't alive, or he wasn't a part of a movie. He probably was a baby during the time of Malcolm X. But if we look at, and it's, believe me, it's a lot of publications that we could use as documented history. And I believe that the best, one of the best and the easiest publications that we can search on Google would be Jet Magazine. Because Jet Magazine, during the time of the messenger, it wasn't a lot of black publications that just came out with news for black people. Like now we can go on CNN and different media outlets, go on Facebook and find out different black publications. But back during the time of the messenger, it was very few publications that had the courage to actually document and say what was actually going on with the nation and give an accurate analyst of what was actually going on. But if you go to Jet Magazine, this would be the easiest if you want to do research. Jet Magazine is the you can go on Google and go on Google Books. You can type in the name and go to in the search engine and say I think it's all issues and everything. Like if you type Elijah Muhammad's name, every issue of Jet Magazine that has Elijah Muhammad in it, it'll come up. And in this issue of Jet Magazine, which was Who Speaks for the Negro, we automatically see that Elijah Muhammad was the only one talking black in 1961. These are facts. This is not something coming from me because I love Elijah Muhammad. Because I'm telling you, I'd be just like Spike Lee. I believe that the messenger was the best and the greatest leader we ever had. I'm going to give you the facts. All praises due to Allah. So, getting it from me, I know how Spike Lee feel. When you feel strongly about something, you present your view. But to be fair, go look for yourself with documented history. Not just from people who giving their opinions, but the history that has been documented about the messenger. And in this issue of Jet Magazine, when they gave the like they would give the animal, because another thing that I think that's good about Jet Magazine, Ebony Magazine, and all of the people who documented the history is that they never just said, the Nation of Islam, they doing good things, and the Black Panther Party, they're doing good things too. They will always compare the messenger with other black groups. Because in today's in our generation of Islam, it's the We Are the World Nation of Islam. We don't compare the messenger to Black Lives Matter and show the failures of Black Lives Matter and the success of the messenger. We all praise is due to Allah. What we want to do is say, they black too. But another good documented history that we could go to is the Muhammad Speaks that's on issues.com. Because if you read the Muslims when the messenger was alive, they didn't have any shame to tell you flat out, Stokely Carmichael is taking teachers from the messenger. Flat out. It wasn't the brother, no. I remember when me and brother Dawad was scanning papers. This brother, now when he was quoting what Jesse Jackson was saying, I thought Jesse Jackson was giving the messenger props. I really did. When I was reading what this brother was saying, I felt like, wow, Jesse Jackson. But to this brother, he was like, nah. He was like, all this time Jesse Jackson spending with the messenger, this all you got to say? He was like, what about his economic plan? What about the fish that we getting from Peru? Why you ain't say nothing? I mean, this brother was going in on Jesse Jackson. I'm like, wow. I read another sister, Sister Marjorie Hassan. She another one. This sister, they had, you can go online and look at this one. It was in 1972. The messenger was on, he was calling in from the radio. And it was Tony Brown's journal. The clip on YouTube is probably 2 minutes of the messenger. But it had a lot of politicians. It had a lot of people, leaders during 1972. And the topic, I believe, was which way for Black America or something like that. So the messenger got on. And he was talking about how he wouldn't give 2 cents for a black man to go to Washington, D.C. and beg the white man. He didn't get on there like, we all black and y'all doing good too, and, we all need to come together. Nah. When you go to the old Muhammad Speaks and listen to what the messenger said about unity, he was talking about unity under the crescent of Islam with him as the leader, with him as the teacher, with him as the guy, and Master Farad Muhammad is the guy for all black people. It wasn't no you know, the Black Panther Party, why don't y'all come with y'all philosophy and we'll take ours and we'll see which one. Nah. When you read the messenger and read what he said, unity meant unity under the crescent for every black man and woman in America. That's what unity meant. But in today's Islam, like for an example, in I believe it was 2016 when Beyonce did her formation during the Super Bowl. On social media, you see all these Muslims across the country, all these Muslims in all these different camps talking about, oh, we should support Beyonce. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what you mean? For what? Why should a Muslim support Beyonce? What does Beyonce have to teach an MGT who going to MGT? What you gonna support her to do? What? Help send the black woman to hell? I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe it. And then what make it bad about today's Muslims is they will support Beyonce over you. If you could quote something directly from the messenger. I remember I had posted something, and I used to post them in these little black conscious groups, but I decided I'm gonna cast my net somewhere else because I don't have time for Muslims to tell me after I'm quoting a direct quote from the messenger about the exact same thing that she's doing now. I could take Marjorie Hassan's articles and direct quotes that she said against what Beyonce doing. And a Muslim would tell me, oh, you're not perfect. We're not perfect. You know, you do stuff too. It's like, come on, man. That's not the point. The point is, what did the messenger say? It don't matter how many faults or flaws I had. What did he say? What was the standard that he gave to black women? That's what we tell people while we try to clean ourselves up. All praise is due to Allah. So we don't sit here and say, well, since I'm not perfect, I'm not going to tell them what the messenger said because I'm not perfect. No, the messenger said it's indecent for a woman to come out of the house with a dress above her knees, flat out. I'm not supporting Beyonce doing that, flat out. I don't care if the lost found turn away, salam alaikum. I'm not doing this because I'm worried about a lost found turning away. I hope that the lost founds come in. But the main objective is tell them what he said. That's the point. All praise is due to Allah. Because you don't know what that lost found might want to hear. You don't know what might convert them to Islam. You trying to choose for that lost found when you don't know. The very thing that you holding back could be the very thing that could bring them in. But you trying to sit up there and decide for them what they gonna like to hear. Nah, I'm telling you what the messenger said, flat out. And that's all I can do. And that's it. Because most of what he said is gonna offend the lost found. I remember the first time I heard that the messenger said that a man should provide a woman with everything she needs to make a house. You think I wanted to hear that? Coming from a place where my mother worked, my father worked, and we lived pretty good. Thinking that if my father just worked the lifestyle, man, ain't no way. So I'm thinking like, how in the world can a man provide for? But I felt at that time, I knew enough about the messenger. It was like, well, I mean, it must have worked for him. And it must work for the nation. Like, look at these brothers. They got wives. But I didn't want to hear that at first. A lot of the things and habits that I had coming in I remember the first time I heard the messenger say that God was a man. I didn't want to, what? And when we die, we just die. I didn't want to hear that. To be honest, I would rather it be all of the black militant stuff, but we die, we go to a heaven where we don't have to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? I would rather that. At the time, you know, I didn't want to hear that when we die, that's it. It's like, that's it. But at the same time, I knew enough about the messenger to be like, but look how great he was. Like, look at the brothers who he converted. Look at how the brothers clean. I remember the first time I went to a temple. I think Allah knows what to show you. I remember I went to a temple and I saw these brothers. I was like, how do these brothers get so clean? I've never seen a brother Cause you know I take bath. I was taking baths, but these brothers' cleanliness was farther than just taking a bath. These brothers' cleanliness was how they talked, how they was acting, how they was dressing, how the sisters was acting. They had the sisters on one side, brothers on another side. How the brothers respected the. I remember I was coming in, and they was doing like fixing the remodeling the temple. So they only had one way for the brothers and the sisters to come through the same spot. So the brother that was standing on post, you know, he didn't look mean or aggressive, but he had a look like fighting wasn't a big deal to him. He didn't look like if something went down, he'd be like, brother, please, you know. He didn't have that look. And I was impressed by that because all the brothers looked like that. So I was coming through and I didn't see the sister. I'm going to be honest. I didn't see her. So I'm walking through and the brother was like, hold on, brother. He was like, let the sister come through. And I'm like, oh, let her come through. You know, because the way he said it, he didn't say it aggressive, but it was like the way he said it. He said it like, let her come through. Like she coming through, pretty much. And I respected that. Even though I was from the church, I didn't know nothing about military bearing and how brothers, you know what I'm saying, carried themselves in a military manner. But when I came to the temple and saw how Muslims under the messenger carried them, I was like, I want to be a Muslim. I remember I told the brother, like, it didn't take long for me to see Muslims and I want to be a Muslim. I asked the brother, like, what you got to do to be a Muslim? He was like, brother, all praise is due to Allah. I asked the brother, I was like, man, what do you have to do to be a Muslim? He was like, man, you can't be in the devil's navy. I was like, what? I was ready to join, like, now, like, what I got to sign? But when he told me that I couldn't join, and I knew that as soon as I got out of the Navy, I want to be a Muslim. Now, think if a brother or a sister felt like, well, this wouldn't be what he want to see, so many brothers looking, then they would have turned me away. You don't know what will attract a person to Islam by telling them, you know, no, we shouldn't say that. Think of the effect that would have happened if every Muslim in America, when they saw Beyonce doing her thing on the Super Bowl with that formation, would have said, nah, sister, you know what I'm saying? You should put some clothes on to dignify yourself. You know, the messenger said that it's indecent for a sister to, you know, wear her dress above her knees. You know, you too good for that. You know what I'm saying? Why we see the talent and what you got in your heart. Now, sister, just clean up, put some clothes on. What's wrong with that? All praise is due to Allah. What's wrong with that? And if she turned away, salam alaikum. Ain't no sweat, but we still standing on our principles. We not giving up our principles because you turn away. If you turn away, we love you, sister. But if you dealing with Muslim sister, you going to have to put some clothes on. Bottom line. And what's wrong with that? We should be proud when a person say, well, I ain't with that, but I respect y'all. I don't want to be a Muslim, because if you look at the history of the messenger, when you go to these publications, when Wallace took over and people was writing in to Jet magazine, people was writing in to Ebony magazine, black people who never was Muslims was hurt when Wallace was changing the teachings of the messenger. Brothers and sisters who never followed the messenger loved the messenger. They could not believe that Wallace was doing what he was doing to the messenger. They knew the messenger's teachings. They would write in. I remember it was a sister, I believe it was Ebony magazine, when Wallace let the first devil come to the temple. This sister was hurt. She was like, what do the black woman got now? She was like, when the messenger, or when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was on scene, we knew we had a place to go. We knew it was somebody who stood up for the black woman. But now even the Muslims, she said, even the Muslims. She didn't just say the Muslims, she said even the Muslims. Because people put the messenger's followers on a higher plane than they put everybody else. And when you read the letters to the editors and all of these different things that black people who was not Muslims would write, they love the messenger, even though they wouldn't follow him. Even though some of the stuff that the messenger was his program turned them away, they still love the messenger. I remember it was another article that was called The Negro Revolt. And in this article in Ebony magazine, you can Google it, it's The Negro Revolt. The very next issue, a brother wrote in to the editors of Ebony and said, how can you write about the Negro Revolt and don't put the Muslims? How you gonna have something? And this brother wasn't even a Muslim. He said, how you gonna talk about the? I mean, you can read letter after letter. So we don't know what part of the messenger's teachings would attract another brother or another. We just tell him what he said, and tell him straight up what he said. Because even when you look at like why a lot of black groups don't talk about the messenger today, is because the messenger stepped on toes of these black groups. Like when we see people putting them, they talk about black power, and we see people with the messenger was against that. He wasn't for black people running around talking about black power and you put your fist in the air. What kind of power do you have? How much farmland you have? How many schools you have? He was like, that's nothing. He was like, that's nothing. And I even remember a certain minister, because a lot of these ministers that was ministers during the messenger's time is still alive today. And I remember a certain minister who was a minister during the time of the messenger was on one of these Afrocentric radio shows. The brother played one of his lectures that he gave while he was with the messenger. He was at one of these Afrocentric they was given something, and he was the keynote speaker. This is how Muslims was. When you go read them, brothers was keynote speakers at these people's function, and still going hard for Muhammad. Still, this brother playing it back, and the brother was going hard on the Afrocentric people with the afros and letting the sisters dance half naked, and he was going in for Muhammad. So the brother was like, well, you know, why you say that? Why would you say that about that? And he was like, well, you know, that was for that time. You know, I was in maturity and I wouldn't say those kind of things now. And that's the attitude you see of Islam today. It just seems like we not proud to be Muslims. We not proud of our difference from the lost found. And you can tell when you go on social media, Muslims don't be proud to be like, I'm a Muslim. I remember being in the military, because I have a whole different respect for the military now that I'm a Muslim. Because when I was in the military, I was in the Navy and we worked close with the Marines. I used to think the Marines was crazy, because the Marines, a Marine love this flag. If that devil tell that Marine that if this sister wear her dress above her knees, she a disgrace, that Marine, I'm talking about, I don't care what country you in, we will be in Muslim countries overseas. A Marine is a Marine is a Marine. I'm an American. I don't care nothing about what you're talking about. When Saddam Hussein, when they said he had weapons of mass destruction, I was in the Navy then with the around Marines, because Marines was on base. They didn't care. They could have said Saddam Hussein's grandbaby had them weapons. It didn't make a difference. If the order come from Washington, D.C. that you got weapons, we coming. That's how it was. They loved their flag. Right or wrong, good or bad. And I used to be looking at them like, what makes them love this so much? What will make a person love something that much to where they would give their life? I'm talking about, I remember we was in Yemen. And Yemen had 2 years prior, they had a suicide bombers got close to one of the Navy ships right where we were and blew a hole in the ship and killed 17 Navy sailors. This is the kind of stuff that us who was in the military go through. Like the messenger said, I'm not asking you to do what they doing in the white man's military. When he was telling the brothers to say, that's true. I bear witness. He not asking us when he say go for two, brother. If you knew what we had to go through, and I mean, when we was a black person in a white man's military, they not telling us that they taking us to the top of civilization. They not telling us that they got this from the mouth of God to help us become a nation. They just saying, hey, it's honor, courage, and commitment, you know? And when a rule was a rule was a rule. It wasn't like, well, you know, self-interpretation. Nah. I remember, this is to tell you how rules and laws work. I forget what country we was in, but they told us we couldn't go to the beach. So it was this white boy, and I thought he was one of the boys. He seemed like they was showing him favor. He decided he was gonna go anyway. So he went to the beach and messed around and fell asleep on the beach. This devil, he came back, he had blisters on him. I mean, you could see the fluid in the blisters. They were so huge. Like, they, in the parts of his body that didn't have the blisters, the sun had peeled his skin. I mean, if he was in the civilian world, they'd have took him to the hospital. Not in the military. Them devils told him, because he had duty the next day. Meaning he's standing watch. Say, if you not on, we used to have quarters, used to be our, where we would get and, you know, be inspected. You ain't at quarters at 0600, not 0605, not 0601. You getting 45 days restriction, half months pay times 2 plus we bussing you. Guess what that devil was at 0600? He was there. He was there. And I mean, so for a person who was in the military before, and then you come out of the military and you see how the pride that you had, even me, because that stuff rubs off on you. When we would go to other, I'm American too. I mean, I was proud of the flag, I ain't gonna lie. When we would be in Yemen, I didn't go as far as the white boys went, but I mean, I felt a certain kind of pride because you were involved. You go there, we'll be in a Muslim Arab country, they'll have a sign, the top of being Arabic, the bottom of being English. They rolled the red carpet off for us, so I felt like, why wouldn't I be proud? So, coming in the nation, I feel, or Muslims who've been in the military feel, Muslims should feel the same way about the messenger. We should have the same attitude about the messenger that a Marine have about his flag. I don't care who don't like it. When Saddam Hussein said that, when they said that he had weapons of mass destruction, the rest of the world was against us. They wasn't feeling that. They didn't totally attack America, but China and all of these, they didn't believe that. So, but do you think the Marines cared? In Iraq, they saying now, when you see the Marines with the Iraqi soldiers, you think that them Iraqis telling the Marines what to do? If they get a order from Washington, D.C. for the Marines that's in Iraq, get orders from Washington, D.C. to turn a children's hospital into a parking lot, guess what? That children's hospital, I don't care if your daughter in there, you better find somewhere else for it. That's what we remember about honor, courage, and commitment. And when somebody say something, it wasn't all of this, well, I know, the messenger said, a sister ain't supposed to wear a dress above her thigh, but I like Beyonce. No, I can't, a person who been in the military and seen it, that's not, you faking. If you really believe that what the messenger, Beyonce or anybody else. And it's not nothing that you aggressive against Beyonce. And I believe that people who know a person that has a love for a thing, you can tell the difference between a person who just trying to ridicule you and a person that's trying to help you. We might not agree. My parents, many times my daddy told me stuff I didn't like, but I could see where he was coming from. I didn't want to come home during the times he told me, but I could understand, like, yeah, it is a lot of stuff happening in the street. I mean, once he explained it to me, it's like, okay, I see that, but I still want to hang. But you can't change what people want to do. All we can do as Muslims is represent the messenger and represent him strong. Not like we ashamed. All praise is due to Allah. Not be ashamed. Not none of that. Because the thing that I feel like in today's Islam that hurts Muslims is social media. Because on social media, you can see the opinions of Muslims all day long. You can see what they like. You can see what they don't like. You can see what they support. You can see where they go. Back in the day, I'm pretty sure from when the messenger passed away, many Muslims didn't believe what the messenger was saying. But the one thing you know is they knew what he expected. They knew when you read the articles, like a lot of times I get papers from back in the day of Muslims. I was like, what is Muslim now? He was sounding so fiery, but the one thing you knew is everybody who wrote for the Muhammad Speaks knew what the messenger wanted them to say. It was no question. When you read the Muhammad Speaks, you don't read the wishy-washy. All the Muslims was on point that wrote in the Muhammad. Even when you read the Muhammad Speaks, when a mistake was made, the very next issue they corrected the mistake. They correcting ministers, they correcting captains, all that. It wasn't all this big eye. Because if you look at the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, everybody want to make certain ministers the big eye. When you look at a progress section, Every minister, it wasn't one thing in New York that wasn't in Philadelphia, that wasn't in Atlanta, that wasn't in Los Angeles. So what make you the big eye? Just because you had a post? Nah. When you read the Muhammad speaks, and that's why when you see in today's Islam, they got these Nation of Islam archives. And I don't mean no disrespect to nobody. Do what you want to do. But how you archiving Muhammad? How you gonna take a Muhammad Speaks newspaper and put it on in a picture frame and put it on the wall? I don't understand that. Many times I honestly want to go to see all of this stuff they got, because they got brand new papers, it look like, new pictures. They got all the artifacts. But I don't trust no Muslim who gonna take a Muhammad Speaks newspaper and put it on a picture frame on no wall. I don't want to be around no Muslim like that. Because I remember, and I'm not speaking about me like I'm talking about believers. When I got my first Muhammad Speaks newspaper, I remember I ordered it to come to my mother's house, because I felt, it's my mama's house, just a safe house. I don't want to send it to my house because it might get lost in the mail, but I felt like my mama's house is going to get there. So I remember when I was at work, and she texted me, "You got a package." Oh my God, I'm like, that's the Muhammad Speaks newspaper that I was waiting for. So I remember when I got home, I opened it up real easy, because I ain't want to tear it. So I opened it up real easy, and I pulled it out, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a Muhammad Speaks newspaper, like back in the day. And I'm looking through it and all of this, and now I see you got a Nation of Islam archives, and you would take the Messenger's paper and put it on the pit. No, I don't want to be around no Muslims like that, brother. I'm telling you. I remember anything that I would see that I felt like, oh, look what the Messenger, I'd take a picture of it and try to crop it and put it online. I want everybody to know about the Messenger. I don't want to just keep my papers and put them on the wall. I'm not going to give you my paper, but I'll make a copy of the paper and put it online. Praise is due to Allah. So a lot of the things about the Messenger today, he's being misrepresented. He's being misrepresented not only by black people who never was a part of any movement, but by Muslims too. Simply because in today's Islam is different from the Islam when the Messenger was alive. When the Messenger was alive, he'd tell a minister to say a certain thing. If they didn't say it, he'd check them. It wasn't no, oh, he this or he that, or this brother this brother. If you go online to issues.com and just search through the different papers, you will see what I'm saying. You will see that the Messenger had no favorites. You can read in the Muhammad Speaks about a minister in St. Louis today. The next issue, like, God, you get used to seeing them. Like, I remember a brother in St. Louis. I was liking his articles. Then one time I got a paper, I'm like, where this brother at? Like, this ain't the minister for St. Louis. Like, where the brother go? You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to get issues to see where this brother went. You know what I'm saying? But if you get the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, you will see the Messenger didn't have favorites. Like, you, some special brother, and you just this big. Nah. And I think that's why these NOI archivists don't want to put that information out, because it would expose them. It would expose all this big eye, expose all this nonsense. So even when you talk about Orthodox Islam, where a lot of Muslims today make the lost found think that Orthodox Islam is where we headed to, or that Islam is the Islam that, nah. Brothers in the Muhammad Speak used to talk about them Orthodox Muslims. The Messenger said that what, it was 98% or 90% of them believe in a spook. Muslims wasn't ashamed. I remember me and my wife had watched, it was one of these brothers who was with Wallace, and I give him credit. When he talked about the time when he was with the Messenger, a lot of the stuff that was going on with brothers during the time of the Messenger, we can't even fathom. This brother, he was talking about the Unity House. He was a Muslim from Atlanta. And the interviewer was an Orthodox Muslim. He was an Orthodox Muslim too. But they was interviewing the brother, asking him about the time under the Messenger. So the brother was like, yeah. And they got to the Unity House. And he was like, well, we were doing Atlanta. He said we had a Unity House where single brothers would all come together and we'd get an apartment. And he said because we felt like we was trying to take the strain off of the married brothers. because he said that the married brothers was married and had children, and they didn't have as much time as a single brother had. So he said that they would take, and all of them would work. They'd pay all the bills. He was like, anything in the house was any brother, you know, if I got a dish, it's your dish. So and then he also said that helped out when you had brothers who was coming from prison. So the interviewer was like, what? Like, so you mean to tell me that a brother just come from prison and he could come to the Unity House? And y'all, he was like, all he had to do was say he was a follower of the message. And another thing this brother said that, I mean, I was blown away listening to this brother. Because one thing I must say about those brothers who was in the nation that went with Wallace, I got to give them credit where credit is due. When they talk about the old times with the messenger, you can see that spark. They don't talk about the messenger like he was just some, you could see it. You can tell that it was something special happening in the Nation of Islam when the messenger was alive. Because I don't care if they was a hypocrite, I don't care what. When they talk about them times, especially when I was watching the brothers in Los Angeles talking about that fish, when they was talking about how the time when the union workers, I guess under the contract, wasn't going to offload the fish. So I saw brothers from Wallace who went with Wallace that was talking about that. So they were saying how, I believe they were saying like Captain Ali Rashid had went to the dock and he noticed like, what's up, you know, why they not offloading the ship? So they said that Ali Rashid got on the phone and called I don't think he called all 250 of these brothers, but they say he called 250 FOI. And brothers, and they were showing the pictures of brothers operating the big crane. Like brothers just came like, what's up? And just got on the crane, got on the fork truck, taking pallets off a ship. I was like, wow. I mean, he did it like brothers wasn't somewhere chilling and, you know, at the park, shooting hoops. You know what I'm saying? Brothers was always ready. And that's what you hear when you listen to brothers. It was just different. It was just different. And I believe we may not have the same things that the messenger. We could have the spirit, though. I don't think that, you know, we might not never get that back. Who knows? But we could still have the same spirit that them brothers had. We could still have that same fire. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if the messenger, I just reading about it. So what? I remember a lot of times people would be like, well, where's so what? Where is? Now I don't care. They had it. What did you ever have? Tell me about where it's at. Now, so what? It's gone. The messenger was still the man. I don't care where it's at. It's gone. Praise the boot to Allah. So back to the Ali Rashid, and they said that when the brothers was taking the pallets off the ship, the union workers finally came. So I guess the head foreman was used to dealing with niggas. So they say he walked up and was like, who in charge here? Like, what's going on? And they say that brother Captain Ali Rashid just walked in his face like, I'm in charge. Like, you think we just gonna let our fish rot? You know what I'm saying? And the white man, they say he just piped down like, oh, well, I ain't know. But what also was impressive about this story about Captain Ali Rashid, he wasn't no tough guy type. And that's the thing that you see when you, with the messengers, ministers, and captains, the ones that was strong. Like Joe Captain, they wasn't a tough guy. He didn't just try to dog the white man out. He explained the situation to the white man. Then he gave him a 5-pound carton of fish. Oh, praises due to Allah. He wasn't just trying to be like, I'm Captain Ali Rashid and we... Nah, I'm telling you, this what happened when we get our fish off, we leaving. We not about to try to cause no problem, but we taking our fish off. You know what I'm saying? And ain't nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with that? You know, he just took charge of his post. Oh, praises due to Allah. And you see that when you read about Muslims during the time. And another thing that you see when you read the Muhammad speaks about Muslim is the messenger made everybody a star. The lieutenants were stars. The MGT captains were stars. Everybody in the nation. When you go to Savior's Day, you reading about brothers like, for an example, they had an incident with some brothers, and this was me and Dawad was scanning papers. and this was something that blew us away. They had some brothers. Let me start with this one. They had brothers in New York who had to go to the police station to fill out some paperwork for something that happened in New York. So this was the police officer talking about how impressed he was with the FOI. He was saying how they told these brothers to be at the police station, I believe it was about 9 o'clock. And he said it was about 15 brothers that had to come. He said all the brothers didn't come at 9 o'clock. He said some would mosey in at one time, another would mosey in at another time. But he said by 9 o'clock, all of the papers had been signed, all the brothers had came and was gone. By 9 o'clock. And that devil was impressed with that. He was like, I'm not used to. He was talking about this in the article, like how they came and signed the papers and was gone at 9 o'clock. I can't believe this. Another paper, me and Dewey, when we were scanning, we saw they had a picture of brothers working at the Muhammad Speaks, the printing press, and they had lost founds and they had Muslims. So it was probably about 15 or 20 people in the picture. So me and Dewey was looking, and we was like, I bet you if we could cover up the names, we can point to the FOI and who the lost founds. So we did it. We was like, this one a Muslim, he a Muslim, he a Muslim, he a Muslim. And when we moved, you could tell. You could tell. And the thing that was funny is all of the brothers who was lost found, some of them was clean shaved. But you could still see, and all of the brothers wasn't standing together. It was like they was all mixed in. But when you seen the lost found, some of the brothers was leaning up against here, some of the brothers was against the wall, but all the FOI was standing straight up and was looking for real. You know, you could just tell, just by the little things you could pick out he a Muslim. He a Muslim. All praise you. So these are a lot of the things and a lot of the misconceptions that you will see if you go to the documented history of the messenger. Because one of the things that people like to say about the messenger that's false is they say that the Nation of Islam didn't start to grow until Malcolm came. That's a lie. Where are the facts? Most of the time when you hear a person say that, they saying it from a perspective of one of these groups that the messenger done stepped on their toes. They mad because the messenger wasn't feeling their thing and was outspoken about it. So now the messenger not around no more, so now they interpret Malcolm X like he was really the one who put the nation on the map. But if you look at the documented history, we will see that in Detroit, in Time magazine, the 1934 issue of Time magazine, according to them, not us, according to them, they say that it was 400 registered pupils at the University of Islam. 400. And they said that it was 500 Muslims that marched to the Detroit police station to try to get some brothers out of jail. 500. This the documented history. This not us talking. So, and then another thing that they say that makes me mad, Betty Shabazz, she said one time that it was what she say, something about it was only 500 Muslims in the nation before Malcolm came, and they were senior citizens. She didn't just say 5, she had to add that extra, and they were senior. But if it's 400 documented with 400 children, senior citizens don't have children in the university. But where's the documented history that Betty Shabazz was talking about? She don't have to talk, because when you look at the history of the messenger, like it was another issue in the Muhammad Speaks where they was, I forget what college they were at, but they had all of these different black groups together talking about schools for black children. So the Nation of Islam was there, plus it was other groups. So one of the sisters in the crowd, once again, a lost found, she got up and she asked one of the groups, like, why y'all don't just help the nation? They got all these schools. Like, why y'all don't just help them if we talking about schools for, for black people? So one of what his name? Maulana Karanga, the one who do Kwanzaa. He said, well, you know, we all know that Elijah Muhammad made us all black, but we all got our own, you know, our own perspective. And if you look at the messenger, even when you look at Stokely Carmichael, and I'm not up here trying to disrespect no group. Do what you want to do, but the facts is the facts.
That's right.
You have Stokely Carmichael when they talk about black power. Stokely Carmichael is the one that you see, he was the black power fist man. But if you look at the history and the documented facts on Stokely Carmichael, he started out with Dr. Martin Luther King in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Marching and singing, they got pictures of this brother. Marching and singing and all of that. He wasn't talking all of this black power then. And this was in what, like 65, 66. So, Stokely Carmichael got wind of the Muslims. And he started talking about the Muslims while he was with Dr. King. Still singing, still with SNCC. He wasn't with the Black Panther Party then. He was still marching. So he would tell Dr. King what would cause friction between Dr. King and Stokely. He would say, I don't want to come to a meeting unless you invite the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This was Stokely started telling Dr. King. So that's when the friction came between Dr. King and Stokely Carmichael. So Stokely Carmichael came and met the messenger. And I believe it was 66, and they talk about how he was longing to meet the messenger. Then later on in that year, he get coined for black power. The messenger been on the scene for 30, 40 years. They don't... what Stokely Carmichael had as a symbol of black power? Other than the black power fist. But if we say that, we hating. We causing disunity. We supposed to just allow Stokely Carmichael to get the credit that the messenger deserves. Don't say nothing, because we supposed to be palsy-wowsy with all the people. No. Then if you look at the Black Panther Party, mean no disrespect to the Black Panther Party, but the facts is the facts. Huey P. Newton in his book is called, it's his book. He got a book out. In this book, he talks about how he was going to the temples in San Francisco, Oakland, and I believe Los Angeles. He said 3, if I'm not mistaken. But he was talking about how he was going to the temple, reading the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. He said that he had Muslims who was his friend. He said he kept up with Malcolm's lectures often. This is what he said. So he said that he would have joined the nation. This is what he said in his book. But he said that he couldn't get with another religion because his father was a preacher and he just wasn't with religion. So he formed the Black Panther Party. You look at the back of the Black Panther Party's page, and this is facts. I'm not here trying to talk about the Black Panther Party, disrespect no brothers in the black. If that's what you want to do, I'm all for it if that's what you want to do. But the facts is the facts. And it shouldn't be no disrespect if we stating a fact.
Right.
If you go on the back of a Black Panther's paper, they got the 10-point program, and then you turn over what the Muslims want, what the Muslims believe. It's copy. Like, we can't say that. Like, we disrespecting the Black Panther Party. That's the facts. It's the facts that Huey P. Newton said that he was going to join. It's facts. It's facts about Assata Shakur. If you read her autobiography, she was talking about the Muslims. She talked about how she respected how the Muslims carried themselves when they would speak. She would say how the Panthers would be cussing. She said, but the Muslims, and she also mentioned the civil rights leaders. She said how they were well groomed and how they talked professionally, and she thought that the Panthers should take that up. She talked about how Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, because when you look at documented history, they didn't talk about Malcolm X the way we talk about Malcolm X today, like he was some leader. Nah. When you read the documented history on the Nation of Islam, they would always talk about Malcolm, but they would talk about him like he was the national representative for the message. They didn't talk about him like he was coming up with no new ideas or anything. Even when you look at Black Muslims in America by C. Eric Lincoln, he talks about how he first came in contact with Muslims. He was in Atlanta. I think Atlanta University. He was a professor at one of the colleges in Atlanta, and he talked about how in his class what attracted him to Muslims is he had a regular brother. This brother wasn't a minister. His brother wasn't a lieutenant. He was a regular brother. But he said that the way this brother would charge Christianity and go so hard against Christianity, like with no mercy, he was like, wow, like, what's up with that? You know what I'm saying? And he said that's what attracted him, a regular brother. And when you read the documented history of the nation, it wasn't always ministers who attracted brothers and sisters to the nation. It wasn't always Malcolm. It was by people seeing Muslims. People seeing well-dressed Muslims walk through the neighborhood. The brother who was in Atlanta, he said what attracted him to the Muslims, he said that, because the interviewer asked him, did you have Orthodox Muslims during the time? And this is the brother who was a Sunni. He was with the messenger, then he started following Wallace. The interviewer asked him, well, was it Sunni Muslims around during the time of the messenger? He was like, yeah. He was like, the Sunni Muslims was ashamed of being a Muslim. He said, but we who followed the messenger, you will be in a fight if you told us we wasn't Muslims. He was like, all praise is due to Allah. Yes, sir. He said that we were the ones out front. He was like, these Orthodox Muslims wasn't out front spreading Islam. And that's one of the things that's missing today about Islam. Nobody talks about who was the one spreading it. The Orthodox Muslims still don't spread Islam. All they do is try to convince black people who already attracted to Islam and tell them, no, this true Islam. They are not out in the street getting nobody. Are we disrespecting them by saying that? No, that's the facts. They never was out front pushing Islam, even now. A lot of time the brother said that the Orthodox Muslims would change their name. They'll be in their Muslim country, Muhammad such and such, but when they over here, they Sam or Charlie. That's what he said. And them facts. But the messenger changed our names from our slave name to Muslim names. All praise is due to Allah. And these are just facts. There's not nothing to disrespect no other group. If you want to be a Sunni, but the facts is the facts. And we don't, and as Muslim followers of the messenger, ain't nothing wrong with us telling the people the facts, even if the facts is against your group. If we gonna have unity, why we can't tell the facts? If we want to have unity with the Black Panther Party, we can't talk about how Huey P. Newton was gonna join the Muslims. We can't talk about how they copied the messenger program that he had for years before the Black Panther Party. You don't want unity. You just want us to sympathize for the fact you took the messenger teaching and you don't want us to say nothing. And that's the facts about all of these groups. Not one, all of them. Because when Jet Magazine in 1961 said, who speaks for the Negro? Well, where was all of these groups? They wasn't nowhere to be found. When you had the devils who was out, who bombed the church in Birmingham, where was the Black Panther? They talk about the Black Panthers now, talking about they was a group formed to protect the black community against the Ku Klux. I disagree with that. I'm not going for that. I respect the Black Panther Party, but you're not going to just take the Muslims and just write them out and talk about no Panthers. Nah. You need to say something about, if you know about Huey P. Newton's and they free breaker, you need to be talking about Muhammad and what he did. All praise is due to Allah. And that's not disrespect. That's facts. Because if I'm a person, just like with Dick Gregory, let's use him as an example. Dick Gregory is on YouTube making fun of Muslims for not eating pork. These are facts. I'm not disrespecting Dick Gregory. This is a facts. I can't say that. He was making jokes about Muslims eating pork. Then Dick Gregory started coming around Muslims. Facts. You got pictures of Dick Gregory smoking while he's still around Malcolm X. You got pictures of Dick Gregory with the messenger. Facts. I'm not disrespecting him. Then Dick Gregory learned how to eat to live. Facts. In 1974, they had an article in Ebony magazine called Farewell to Chitlins. Then they had Dick Gregory, the same brother who was clowning the Muslims for not eating pork. This brother in there, and he learned how to eat to live from the Muslims. So you would think, if the article called Farewell to Chitlins, Dick Gregory about to say something about the messenger. You would think. If you got that from him, Dick Gregory ain't say nothing about the messenger. He in Chicago with some sister who owned a restaurant talking about she coached him through fasting. We can't say nothing about that. We disrespecting Dick Gregory. We mention that? No. If we gonna have unity with Dick Gregory or unity with any group, if you stealing from the messenger, we telling. All praise is due to Allah. We blowing the whistle. Flat out. All of these black religions, if you want unity, we gotta tell them, yo, you taking from the messenger. Because there isn't a black religious group today that's talking they talk, that if you don't know the messenger teachings, you will see it all in. Like, come on, man. Many of these groups, because when you listen to the messenger talk about religion in the Bible, he would say that under the name of Israel, it represents us. Under the name Israel. So he's saying Israel is not our name, but under that name, it represents us. So when they talking about Israel, we not Israel, but they talking about us. So a lot of these black groups, what they do, instead of saying under the name, they say, oh, we Israel. So the lost found can see that when they talking about Israel, those characteristics do talk about the black man in America. But they not telling them that you are not Israel. They tell them that you are Israel. Just taking in 1967, the messenger told us how Israel came to be. He talked about Yaqub. And he talked about how Yaqub wrestled with the angel. That's how the name Israel came to be. Facts. Wasn't nobody out here talking about they know black Israelite then. These are facts. And the messenger, you could go to Pittsburgh Carrier. The same thing he was talking about in 67, he talking about in 57. So it ain't like, oh, well, in 1967 he been talking up the 30s. The facts. So we disrespecting them by saying that? That's the facts. And I believe that in this generation, Muslims need to stand on the facts, man. We respect you, brother. Yeah. We respect the fact that you doing your thing in your religion. That's good. You doing a good work. But you taking the messenger's teachings, brother. This is the facts. All praise is due to Allah. I'm not here to disrespect you. I'm not here to disrespect anybody. But I believe as a Muslim that it's nothing wrong if I'm telling a person a fact, a documented fact, that I can show you the proof of. And it's a fact that no black religious group, no black nationalists, no black power, when you had devils like the devil that bombed the church in Birmingham, wasn't nobody talking about no black Israelite. You don't see nobody on the corner talking that. You don't see no Black Panthers. Am I disrespecting them for saying that? It's the facts. It's the facts. And it shouldn't be a thing like we feel like we being divisive by stating the facts. We respect you. We don't carry weapons. We don't aggressively do anything to anybody. But we feel that in this present day, the messenger is being wiped out of history. That's the facts. You got Nation of Islam archivists who have Muhammad Speaks newspapers that'll put it on the wall. You got Muslims who used to be Muslims, but now you over these little black religious groups. These the facts. Some of these brothers was in the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. It's just the facts. You know what I mean? And I could go on and on, brothers and sisters. And you know, when I first came up here, I really didn't know what to say. I really didn't know what to say, but I felt like I'm going to just get up here and just start talking. And, praise it. But it was some, I forget the name of the brothers that gave the greetings. Brother Muta Kabir. Brother Muta Kabir sent the greetings. And Brother Rahman and his family sent the greetings. And, say again. Al-Adin, Azim, Brother Al-Azim Muhammad sent the greetings, and Pastor Buckets.
brothers and sisters, rise for prayer. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, merciful. All praise I do thee, Allah, Lord of all the worlds, the beneficent, most merciful. Soul Master in day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone do we seek thy help and aid and mercy. O Allah, please guide us in the right path. The path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors. Not the path of those upon whom the wrath has been brought down, nor the path of those gone astray, after they have heard thy teachings. Say he, Allah is one God. Allah is he with whom nothing is independent, but upon whom we all depend. He begets not, nor is begotten, and there is none like him. And I bear witness that none deserves to be served, worship, praise besides Allah, who came to us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And I bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is thy true servant, the last apostle. Amen. Our Allah has not taught us not to do anything to anyone that we would not have done to ourselves, treat everybody right, even the devil. Assalamu alaikum.